with that said, I got us possibly in record time to our demo section tonight. Scott,
Hey, all
are
right.
you ready to take it away?
All right. Okay, I'm gonna start with the launcher because I don't know who knows how or how much everyone knows about the engine. So we're gonna gotta cover our bases here. Where is this? So Epic Games Launcher. So if you don't already have it, go ahead and grab 5.6. There used to be an options in here that you would need to come in and clean up and turn off a bunch of things, but they actually default to this now, where Android and iOS and all this stuff is already off and not giving you gigs and gigs of extra stuff. And I think that's great, mainly because the core engine itself is large now as well. So that's awesome. But make sure when you do grab this, there's a couple of other things that you're going to need to update, and that's going to be if you don't see very many things down here, don't fret. But you'll type in Metahuman and you'll want to do not type in meth. Metahuman.
Oh no, Scott.
Don't forget to upgrade your meth for sure.
Off to a great start, huh?
Right. So make sure that you grab as much as you can for the Metahuman stuff, and you're going to want to make sure that the plugin first and foremost is installed to the engine, and then grab all the packs. They are free. And you should be able to add those to your project once you're in. You'll also want to make sure that you grab Fab. And then we still want to be grabbing Quixel Bridge as well. So that's another thing. You'll want to make sure that you install that to the engine. And if you do have previous versions of the engine, again, you'll need to make sure that you update 5.6 with those as well. Separate installs for all of those. But then the cool thing is you're just going to launch, and I'll do a separate launch here, and we'll take a look at some of the new templates. And I'll have to reshare, so forgive me. We're going to pop around a little bit. My monitor is entirely too large to share for anyone to see. All right, did that come through?
Not
Are we
really.
seeing me
Not really. It's a
there? How about that?
It's a beautiful gray rectangle. There we go.
Okay, so we have some new templates, right? So the third-person template got an update. We now have options in here. If you click on third-person template, you will see the variant option down here, which is new. We have combat, platforming, and side scroller. These are a little bit more of a push in the right direction for different types of third-person games that you can build. And the same is true for like some of the others. Like you have top-down, you have twin stick and strategy. The vehicle has some options in there as well. So that's super great, super awesome to kind of get more templates, more breakouts, and push you a little bit closer to, it's like a really strong starting point for whatever it is you're going to be working on. Same deal for like the virtual production stuff is a lot of the same, and you'll see this kind of replicated when we get to the plugin side of things. Virtual production has been kind of it had its 5 years of being super popular and getting all the attention and focus, and now the attention and focus is kind of shifting back towards the engine and animation and games and doing what it does really well. So let's reshare now, and I'll go back to, we'll go into the engine. So you'll pick your layout, pick your template, and you'll jump into whatever it is you'd like to. The most common, and give me one sec. The most common one and the most user-friendly one that people tend to use is the third-person one. I do really like the new combat layout, and that's the one that I'm going to start with here. It gives you a lot of cool options. But yeah, the third person, first person, these are when you hit the play button, it's kind of gets you right into the game. But let's jump into the engine itself. I'll just cancel that, and I will, sorry, that was jarring. Screen share here. All right, blank, empty engine. And let me just double check that this is the right one that I opened. I didn't open the right project. Hang on just a second. Let's do this first. Let's take a look at all the plugins that we're going to want to turn on once we get in here. I need to switch projects, but the first thing I like to do when I get a new release, right? When Unreal 5.4, 5.5, 5.6 comes out, I will pop into the plugins menu, right? Which is going to be edit plugins. And I will just go through everything and look for the purple buttons, right? So if you come to like animation, you see these experimental buttons. That's all the stuff that's going to be new in this engine release. And so those are the first things that I'm going to be clicking on. and I'm going to be turning them on, and I'm also going straight to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever it is you're searching with these days and looking to see if anyone has any information about those. Because I mean, if you get a moment to play with the new stuff, that's the fun part of this, and then gives you a little bit of an edge and like let you know what they're focusing on in terms of like release structure and goodies, and so it gives you kind of like a leg up in terms of like what's coming down the road, but also, you know, like what's going to be a little buggy, because it is going to be a little buggy, and there are some times where you'll see experimental bugs on here for stuff that is actually being deprecated, because not all it all doesn't make it off of the cutting floor, right? Like so some of these things are really cool and really going to be supported, and we're going to look at some of them tonight, like this locomotor one. We're going to turn this one on for tonight. And we're going to, you know, some of these, they're going to be like utilized very well, very far down the road and maintained and updated and get into beta, possibly out of beta, but some of them, you know, might not make the cut. But still fun to turn all this stuff on and then, you know, not crash, of course, because it's definitely stable, right? But but just to see what we get, right? What's in this new pretty box that we get here. And you'll notice I'm in this animation section here. There is a lot of new stuff in here, right? And so we have some stuff we'll look at tonight, the skeletal mesh morph target editing tools. This is a great new option that has been added here. We've got a lot of this anim graph stuff. This Unreal Animation Framework is this whole package that's coming down the lane with all of this stuff you see here. We have some warping, some state tree stuff, which is good for games and AI agents, some pose searches, control rigs, anim graphs, you name it. There's a whole mix of stuff coming in here. There's animation pickers that we can build out now, all kinds of fun stuff in animation. Contrast that, like I was saying earlier, if you go down to the virtual production side of things, I don't think a single thing in here has been updated for experimental, right? Like all this stuff is in beta. We got Live Link Open VR. There we go. And this is, you know, probably some stuff to deal with like the latest headsets that keep coming out. But yeah, this stuff is moving into like the stable sort of releases, right? Virtual production has had its heyday and its experimental days are behind it. And we know what we're doing with virtual production. The hardware and software are both getting more stable. People, they are trained up in it, and there's tons of people working in this space. So it's actually good to see this. It's not, I don't think it's a bad thing to see, like, you know, not seeing experimental things in here. Like it kind of goes, I gave a talk the other day of like, you know, we have plug will play was the kind of tagline, right, that I gave, was like, we, you know, it's plug and play now, right? We've been working in this sandbox for a long time, working to make it like, you know, a standardized sort of stable method of working and producing, you know, film and television, and it's kind of there now, right? And so it's, go ahead and give us, like, you know, the work, because we've already you know, we know what we're doing with it, you know. Damn, Firefox crashed. That's wild. I hopefully I don't disappear and I don't crash, but you know, Zoom and Unreal never good friends together. Okay, so that's, again, like when you pop in, go to the plugins, look through all of the things that matter to you and check and see what's new, see if you can find some of these experimental things, turn them on, see if there's any information out there about them, and experiment and play with the things that there are no informations for. And I'm gonna have to stop share really quick. I'm gonna switch over to the project that I meant to open. I did this twice, and here's why. The other reason that the reason that I have two things, and the reason you got to be kind of careful with the plugins, I turned on probably 30 or 40 plugins yesterday and rebooted, and the engine got stuck at the loading screen at like 88%. I was like, shoot, I turned on too many, and I couldn't whittle down which one that I turned on that I needed to go and remove. So I just created a whole new project, and then only turned on like 5 at a time. So word to the wise there, don't turn everything on and try to reboot. All right, so I think this is the right demo of this. All right, so let's share this. Okay. So this is that new third player template that we were talking about here. And all you really need to do is just hit the play button and you'll go get right to it, right? So it'll just start up and you can click to WASD and run around. This looks a little different from what I was seeing last night, which is awesome. There was a health bar and I was able to, this might actually be the wrong level. Hang on a sec. So I'm going to hit escape, or alternately. So like you can see how I'm just moving around with my mouse here. I'm just wiggling my mouse and it's orbiting the camera. If you want to get out of this mode where you're kind of stuck on your character, there's the F8 button. And now you're still in play mode. You're still in the game here, but you can kind of orbit around freely with the WASD keys. But I'm going to stop this and let's make sure that we're in the right third person level, because there's a couple of them, right? So let's pop this.
Should be in that variant combat folder. I'm actually over here messing with it myself.
Yeah, that's the one. You're right. Okay, so now I'm going to pop into play mode here. There we go. So we've got our health bar, and if you mouse click, you get a a punch, and so you can still run around and you can punch things now, and you will go into you can see there's some dynamics set up in here, and so it's fun to play around with at first. Jumping is disabled though. That is one thing that is different, and that's why I think we have that other level still there. But you've got an AI agent here that we're able to fight, and it tells you what they're doing, and you can punch them until their health disappears. I can't lose to the first guy. Come on. There we go. And then it gets replaced with 2. So this is really cool. It's really fun to play around. And all of the blueprints for all of that stuff is loaded in here, preloaded. So you can go through and tear it all apart, figure out how it was done. So this is a step further than the previous third-person blueprint that we used to get and we've all been used to seeing for years, right? So this is a really cool update, and there's a lot of like educational stuff in here. Like, I mean, this is how I learned a lot, back in 2018, 2019, when I first started working with the engine. This was how we learned, was like you take that third person template, which hadn't changed in 5 years, and you just start tearing it apart and checking out what everything does and how it all works, right? Looking at the different textures, shaders, lighting, and all of that stuff. And so now you've got a lot more options as far as that goes. What I did notice though, that I think is hilarious, that has not been updated. So there's this feature that's been that's called starter content. So if you go to your content browser here, and we go to, where is my button for add? We go to add feature or content pack. You can grab a lot of these templates from, if you've already created a template and you want to add another one to the project, you can do that by going to this add project or add feature or content pack. But there's this funny thing where there's this starter content, right? So we can go add feature or content pack, and there's where is it? Content, the starter content. This has been the same since and John, help me out here. Has this been the same since Unreal 3 or the beginning of Unreal 4? Because like it's still the same. Like the starter content has not.
Yeah, they updated it right around like 4.6 when they started to like fix their PBR stuff. But beyond that, it's been the same stuff since 2014 or 2015.
Which I kind of love. That's kind of endearing, because it's like you go to add the starter content and you've still got like Cascade stuff in here and no Niagara, the old chairs.
Yeah. The starter content's going to be the reason why Cascade will never be deprecated.
Yeah.
Because then they would have to update their starter content. So
that's actually a perfect segue. We did update the UI. We do have updates to the UI. This is completely different if you're used to working in 5.4.3 to 5.5. The UI has looked a certain way. And look, even with the update, Cascade is still in the menu in the viewport, right? So we have our Cascade options. So yes, it's long live Cascade, right? Anyways, yeah, so that's a perfect segue. Let's take a look at the UI. And John, feel free to jump in, because I know you've done a deeper dive. This is like, full disclosure, I've been working in 5.6 since January when I started at Evil Eye, because we're working in Fortnite directly, and it took a couple of weeks for me to get used to, but after that, it just felt like normal. So don't fret if you're like going crazy and thinking this UI is like, completely, because it is completely backwards, right? Left is right, right is left. And so it's kind of difficult to find things with your muscle memory, but it will wear off because I've been using it for a couple of months, and it just feels natural now. This feels, and I think it is more organized, and I do like the way that some of this stuff is like you've got scalability right here in the viewport as opposed to having to go through options up here for a lot of the viewport stuff. So I'm liking the change. Go ahead.
If I can say something about this new UI here. So when I saw it, at first it was like, okay, this is going to be cool because it's very similar to like Maya or 3D Studio Max, kind of almost a little bit of like Blender kind of look there. It looks like your 3D software. But I got in there and it was a pain to work with until I started to figure out where everything was, and then I had to go back to a project that I'm working on right now, which is still in 5.5. And I was actually getting annoyed at the old viewport controls in there. So the little command that you found, Scott, to be able to switch between them.
Yes, the console
I just like randomly tried that in 5.5, and these viewport controls are in 5.5 as well. You can actually turn them on.
Right. Remind me what that command is. Do you know?
You
can put it in the chat.
Yeah, I have it.
Somebody can add it to the chat, but there is, if you are stuck and you're like, I just can't stand this UI, there is a CVAR, which someone will drop in the chat that will take you back to the old look if you want to.
There we go. That's the actual CVAR and in the chat there, and then what values to put in. There's a 0 for goes back to the old version, 2 goes back to the new version here, and then 1 will actually show both of them at the same time.
Yeah, which if you think you're confused in one of them. It's also worth pointing out though that while I'm here talking about the menu, there's a couple of additions here that weren't in the old one too. Like the snapping is broken out into a couple of different places, and it's great. It works well. But it's contextual, right? So if you're in modeling, you're going to get more options for some of the stuff that's been in the modeling tool set is now up here in the UI, right? So it's kind of broken out. So some of the, like if you have face selection, edge selection, vertex, all that stuff, select triangles, all that, so it's really important to pay attention to, like when you're in animation mode, the UI has more tools specific to the mode of work that you're doing, right? So just keep an eye on the top bar up there, because some of the stuff that you're looking for that may have been in other places may have been placed here to be convenient to you, but when you go looking for something that's not there, that's not so convenient. So just keep an eye out and remember that will change. All right, so the big one, right, that everyone is talking about that I'm actually not going to spend a ton of time talking about is, of course, the metahuman stuff, right? And so you'll notice when you turn on the and I'm not going to talk about it because there are so many videos out there, and I want to give some space to either John or Franco or anybody else that wants to do a little bit more of a deeper dive or talk about their favorite tool. But I also have a lot of other things that I would like to highlight, because I think there's a lot more than just the Metahuman update that I think is worth talking about, as cool as the Metahuman update is. So the Metahuman update, did I not even turn the plugin on? I might have to restart again, and I will apologize to all of you if that is the case. Metahuman Creator. Okay, I will. You know what? I'm going to skip ahead. We're going to come back to Metahuman Creator, and I may give someone else the chance to talk about that. But I'm not going to restart right now. Let's just keep rolling through some of the other updates, because I want to keep this snappy. But that is the big one. You'll see a lot of the fact that we don't have to go to the website anymore, and we can do Metahumans right here in the editor is amazing. There's a lot of features that are both immediately obvious and awesome, like some of the body shaping tools and some of the new stuff that we have with blending the heads and stuff is there's a lot of great new options inside of there, and a lot of less obvious features and ties in with some clothing and the groom stuff, and there's a lot of really cool things in there and tips and tricks that you will see from some of these other instructors, and possibly myself if I get the time to get back to it. But so let's put a pin in Metahumans for a second here, and we'll come back to that, because I would like to talk about let's see, let's do the locomotor, right? So I don't know how much you guys have seen in terms of, I'm gonna go back to that other third person level here. The whoops, that's not a level. The Locomotion Tool is also a brand new update to some of the rigging and animation tool sets, which I think is really cool and it's actually really fun. So let's do a quick demo of that and see what that looks like. So I've got this Little Dragons pack that was, if you go to Fab, I think it was free for the month like a couple of weeks ago. And so if you do grab those frequently, which you should, just every 2 weeks now, I think it is, or 3 weeks, go to Fab, just check out what's on free and put it in your cart and make sure you grab it, because that will start to build out your library. And even if it's something that you think is completely irrelevant to you, go ahead and grab it, because I am doing stuff now 5 years later from when I started my account and started grabbing those free assets that is completely different from what I was doing 5 years ago. So the irrelevant thing will change. Things may become relevant, right? So even if you're not doing game stuff now and you're like, I'm just into film, go ahead and grab that game stuff, because you never know what's coming. Anyways, sorry. So Little Dragons, right? So we've got these skeletal meshes in here, and so they're really cute. But let's put a locomotion rig on one of these guys, right? So I'm going to do the little green guy here. I'm going to right click on it. And again, this is, you make sure you've enabled the locomotion plugin here. But if you right click on it and you go to create, we're going to create a control rig. And so that's going to make a, there we go. See the control rig icon there and the little star that says this is unsaved. That's my new one. So I'm going to pop this open. And it preloads our character because we use the create tool. You can create empty control rigs by just going to the animation menu and just go to create control rig there and load in any character you want. But this just takes it, you know, that one little button push further. So I'm only going to create one control for this rig. This is going to be the simplest rig we've ever made in some terms. So we're going to right click here on the root bone, and we're going to create a control. If I can find the, why can I not find the option to create a curve? I'll just create a new control here. You should be able to create a new control directly here. New element, there it is, new control. It's been a long day, you guys. All right, so I'll delete that other one and root control. So it's the new element. I'm gonna get lost because, you know, I'm doing a demo at the end of a workday here. So, all right, so that, if I move this root control around, should move our root bone here. Let me actually pull up my notes. We're going to pull this root control in. We're going to get the control. We're going to create a locomotor node. So just right click and start typing. A locomotor will come up. There's a lot of fun stuff in here. If you're going through and if you just want to check out what's new in the rigging stuff, there's a lot of like new stuff with physics and stuff. So right click and just start looking at some of these menus in here. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do with the rigging. If we go to simulation, you can see now there's like add jiggle functions, chain dynamics, all this stuff. All these functions now are, this is starting to look a lot like Blueprints, the control rig, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff you can add to your control rig to create some fun dynamics in here. So definitely take a moment to check those out and see what they do. But we're just going to pull in here and execute that. And we're going to go to root control and set that to our root control. Right, and then we need to make two, because we have a quadruped, right? We have 4 feet. That's going to be 2 sets, right? If you're doing a biped, you would just do a left foot, right foot. But we're going to do 2 sets here, and we're going to do 2 feet each, right? And so you can see if I hit the plus sign to create a foot set, and that gives me the option for feet. So we'll create 2 feet, right? So this is going to be my front feet, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to set my ankle bone to, the type is going to be a bone, and our foot is actually in the front is called hand, right? So we're going to do left and right hand. And you can see it created this little box and that already has like physics on it. And you can see it created and snapped down to the sort of the origin of the world there. So we're going to do the same thing here. We'll go to bone and we'll go to right hand, right? Oop. I keep my my UI is usually backwards at home than it is for work, so I'm having to switch left brain, right brain all day long. All right, so I'm going to create the 2 back feet as well. So we'll create an ankle bone here. We're going to go bone, and it's going to be right foot. And then we'll do the left foot as well. All right, and there is a lot of options in here for setting like your dampening and things like that. You can your stepping, you have different how high the steps go. And again, so this is what's going to happen is when we control this root control, we're going to pull it around, and you can see the boxes updating there. That's pulling the character. It's going to be stepping automatically, right, giving us locomotion, which is awesome. And you have options in here to change the types, like how it reacts to everything. You have control over the height, like I said, ease in and out. We have, the different ground collision heights, and there's a lot of options that you can change. We're just going to leave it at default for now, but definitely if you're in here messing around with stuff, you're going to want to kind of dial this in to your character's type, and you can create a lot of different types of walks with that, right? So the next thing we want to do is create a FBIK. That's going to be a full body IK. So we're going to right click and type in full, and we'll get that full body IK here. And we're going to tie this execution into there. And then we're going to need to create 4 effectors. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then what we'll do is we'll take these feet transforms and we'll tie them in, but you can't put them in directly. So the node that we're going to need to grab here is called an at node. There it is, array at. So you can plug this array in here. And we actually want to set our effector bone here. This is going to be, and make sure that you match these too. So we have the left hand goes to the left hand. So like the front index 0 there is going to go to this index 0 as well. And then we'll need to set our index on each of these. So left hand, and then we'll go ahead and set right hand here. Oh, right. Don't make me type it. There it is. And so I'll duplicate that, and we'll just pull off again, and we'll duplicate these twice more. And so I can go ahead and set my index is going to be 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's going to represent my 4 feet there. And we'll plug these in. We'll plug this in. We will plug our array into here. And then we need to set our back feet. So that's going to be, let's see, is it right foot first? Yes, it is. And then left foot. I can, it's very difficult to see things. I can see. I don't need my glasses. I'm not that old. I'm that old. All right. So we're going to go ahead and evaluate that. I do think there is one key piece that I am missing. I'm going to cheat because I did do this yesterday. I want to make sure I get this right. And I think it is. No, that should be working. Okay, so what about my root control is not driving my locomotion rig? Because I created it properly. Let's create a new one here.
You never added a like a bone transform as the control
Right.
transform. So you need all that basic stuff before you do anything else?
It should, because I created it by right-clicking on the bone, that new
Oh no, that
there we go.
Oh,
It worked that time.
okay.
It must have just whoops. It must have just been because I already had that other control working. Oh, God. Goodness. Let me I'm over clicking now. I'm overdoing it. All right, that's working. So I'm just going to hit G to recompile. All right, or we can just compile. There we go. All right, and I do need to actually, you did remind me that I've got to set my root bone here as well. So let's find that pelvis bone. So that's the pelvis bone, because that's going to be underneath this. So we've got our root bone, which is going to be controlled by the controller itself. The pelvis bone is sort of its center of gravity for the full body IK, right? So that's what we're differentiating there. And that should be it. Again, we have a ton of settings and stuff down in the settings menu here. You can change the mass multiplier and how much his head follows. There's a lot of different things we can change with this. Again, we're just going to stick with the defaults for now because it is basically set up and working. Like, it's not, there's a ton of stuff you don't have to do to get this working. It's literally two nodes with a couple of conversions inside. So let's save that. And I'll close it. And what we'll do is we'll just create a new level sequence here. And I'll open that, and we will pull in our little baby 2 character, and I'll spawn him in. And that's going to spawn at the origin. So here's the funny thing that I have noticed about this, and there's a good thing and a bad thing. Here's one of the positives is you can stack this with animation, right? So we can choose the flying. Let's just do like a fly idle, okay? And I'm just going to drag that out. And now we're going to click on the add button here, and we're going to find our control rig. And this is the new one we just made with the 1 at the end here. And then so it's going to create at the origin here, right? And what the thing that happens is you're going to be able to grab that root control, and your little character is going to just walk automatically, right? So the thing that I am hoping to see this develop into a little bit is one. This is, I'm sure, intended for games and working in real time. It would be lovely though if it was tied into cinematics a little bit as well. I'm biased, of course. I work in cinematics. I work in linear content, so of course you want to see it. But yes, so if you set a keyframe here on the root, and then we kind of move it here, you'll see that it reset back to the origin, and it's got to kind of like find its way, right? So we can, but you can animate this thing, and you do get the updates, right? It is really fun to kind of play with this. And let's actually orient him properly. Set that 90 degrees that way, and delete those keys. But he does walk. So it's super cool to see, like, just you've got one control doing all of this. It's just the root control. And all you need to do is just play with it and pull it around. You can use this, I'm sure, in take recorder. You know, if you have a character that you're just wanting to drive by, instead of using the game controller or whatever, you can just pull on it and get it to walk up and over. If you wanted to visualize what your collision is and how all the things are going to work when it walks up and over things, there is the visualizer for that. It's going to be player collision. So you can kind of see what has collision set up properly on it and what does not, right? But yeah, this is one of those updates that's, I think it's super fun. I enjoyed just playing around with it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how much farther we can push this. You can set this up again for bipeds. It's just 2 less feet. There's a lot of cool stuff that we can do with that. Questions on this so far?
Why does it flap its wings?
Why does it flap its wings? Because I have the animation.
Oh, got it. My bad.
Yeah. And the transform, I think, still works too. We can see, I mean, like, all this stuff stacks really well. So
Wait, I have another question.
yeah.
So you have an animation track running, clearly, and then you went in and you added a control rig which is not layered, and it is not taking over the animation.
No, the locomotion does not have to be layered. It works.
Interesting. That's new. All right.
So yeah, I think like the practical uses of this, I think are still going to be game mechanics right now. In terms of linear content, I think the practicality is up for us to kind of like do some exploration, and or if just find out what all the different use cases for this are, or see what kind of updates come our way with this tool, because it is brand new. But it is one of those exciting places to kind of keep an eye on. While I'm in here, I'm in the sequencer. Let's take a look at some of the options that have been added to sequencer, right? We've got a little bit of a UI overhaul here as well. Some things have been consolidated. Snapping, the disabled in whole frames here has been added to a button, which is great because
It's been promoted.
yes, exactly.
Oh
So
my God, it was
we
so
have,
hidden before. Every single class, like teaching students, hey, enable this for the love of God. And now it's been promoted to a full-blown button right there in front of you.
yeah, totally. And I don't know if how how you guys work. If you're liking this layout here, where my curve editor has been set up to match exactly my sequencer here, there's some options that make sure you check. Again, they're still buried. You see the little options wheel here. I use link filters with curve editor, and I also auto expand filtered items, so that when you click on stuff and it just filters down into it, it will focus in here. So when you have lots of sequences and you're diving through all of your sequences and your subscenes and everything's kind of nestled and buried inside of there, it'll autofocus to sort of where you are and what the important stuff is. That's a good thing to have on there. And then the other option for tying them together, I think, was it's another one that's kind of buried. I'll see if I can find it, but yeah, there's another option where like when you update the time slider in the sequencer, it will update it in the graph editor as well. So that's very cool. But let's take a look though at some of these curves and the new blender, right? So now we have our in-between tool, which has been built out. It's been taken. It used to be, it actually still is up here. So we have a tween tool up here, but it's much more convenient to have it right here in our graph editor, where you're gonna be doing in-betweens, right? So that's amazing. So if you click on this little drop down here, we have our in-betweeners are all going to be over here. So I think it defaults to push-pull or blend neighbor. I can't remember. But there's a bunch of different options. Like this is, for those of you animators out there, this is probably more than you get in Maya, actually, in terms of like tweening, right? Tweening tools that you get. So this is awesome to see. So these are all different types of in-between, algorithms that are going to run. And so let's just take a look at what some of them does and how you actually use this tool. So you can see if you pull on the in-between tool, it creates an in-between curve, and you can set it lower or higher in terms of tangenting there. And so that's, it's basically a better way to kind of work with like your curves without having to go in and modify handles and do all kind of that good stuff. So smooth and rough can add in different, this one's got more of a linear thing to it, where like it's not going to be the full range, that they're kind of capped. So there's a bunch of different options for tweening in here too. So it's good to go get familiar with all of them and what they all do, because they all have a little bit of a different operation. Some of them are going to be full on tweens where you have major control. Some are going to be a little bit more granular. And then some of them we have, I think it's even the time offset, which is going to give us a bit of a difference. So that's going to be if you have time offset, I think, enabled in here. And so that's so let's say for instance, how do we do the time offset? You can do it on the attached tracks, but you can also do it say like on the animation here. So we have and if you right click on the animation, you go up to the properties, there's a lot of options inside of here, right? Where you've got playback and offset and all that stuff. So let's say you wanted to play this at a different play rate, you can choose now, instead of just saying a fixed play of like, we're going to play this animation at 100% animation regular speed, or you can cut it in half. Now you can actually animate the rate that you're playing the animation at. So I don't know if that makes sense, but let's take a look at it, right? So we're going to do a play rate curve. And so we can do a play rate now in here, so we can be at 100% at 50, for the first half of this animation, and then I can set a keyframe. And then for the second half of the animation, we want to drop down to say 40%. And now so that you've got a time warp on here. So you can time warp animation that's been recorded without having to do any, like previously, if you wanted to do something like that, you would need to like add a control rig, do some offset keys to it, bake it out again, add in the new animation track. So like this actually takes 5 or 6 steps and puts it into one little keyframe, which is awesome. Very, very time-saving tool to have right there. So being able to play with that. I haven't rendered this yet, so I'm not exactly sure how well this works with the new MRQ or MRG tie-ins. It used to be when you would set, so like in sequencer, you'd have time dilation track. And I know this was actually not great for linear content because all it would do would actually be to give you extra frames at the back end. And you would have to go into your post software and re-edit the whole thing and re-time dilate in post. So I'm hoping that this actually renders properly as you would intend, and you're still getting, let's say if this is 120 frames, it's going to be 120 frames. I would assume so, the way that it's built, because it's not actually messing with time here. So I'm thinking this is going to be the more stable version of what we were hoping time dilation did for us. Cool. And then animation trails. Sorry, I'm going to take a quick pause for questions. Any questions? Anything else that Franco, you wanted to highlight in sequencer that I missed?
Oh, there's 37 things that I want to highlight. Not that you missed, but we can spend 7 hours talking about the new things on sequencer. I think you mentioned one key thing, which is the move. They're kind of forcing us to move into movie render graph, which is great because the graph is extremely more powerful than movie render queue. But we do have a new button, which is quick render now, which
yes.
helps us take a look at our things in sequencer or even in viewport without needing to set up cameras and set up render settings and set up all that. So that's again in tandem with your idea of I don't know how this would render out. The new button will help you just click on it and see what happens, right? Which is awesome. And that's on the left of the play button, all the way to the top on the play simulation button.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Whoa.
a bit. Oh,
there it goes.
you hit
First
simulate
crash of the
and
day.
it's gone. Yeah.
Crash button.
So yes, the crash button.
The crash button.
So you simulated with a locomotor rig down there and it crashed, huh?
Right?
Interesting.
Well,
Yeah, obviously experimental, huge,
you can
and
only
imperfect,
screen
right?
share for so long without crashing.
Yeah. I know.
I'm gonna blame Zoom. It's not Unreal. It's Zoom's fault. It's been that
I
way.
agree.
For years.
So yeah, the quick render is great, but by default it defaults to movie render graph. You actually cannot change it. It will only and exclusively render with movie render graph, which is fantastic. It's a new way of rendering. It differs from the old settings from movie render queue base because movie render queue is really an interface, and you can use the old settings that we all know, or you can tell movie render queue to render with movie render graph. So it's kind of weird the way you interchange the names, but they're really kind of the same thing. It's just that they're in different hierarchies, if you will. And it's great because you don't even need a camera down on your scene. It will render viewport if you have anything in viewport. So it's really, really powerful. And also new with Unreal Engine 5.6, it's been 74 years, but we can render H.264. Welcome everyone to the era in which we can render audio and video at the same time, and we don't need to enable Apple ProRes to render video anymore. And what's more fun is that now the people that have Apple actually, which could not render with Apple ProRes for whatever reason, can now render video with H.264, which is enabled by default, which is amazing. Yes, it does. It does render still frames if you want to. You can tell it to render a set section of frames. You can tell it to render from viewport with a set amount of frames. I think you need a sequencer if you want video, or maybe just simulate, maybe just play. I don't recall that part, but I've been using it just to do quick renders out of sequencer without having to set up anything. It's a menu item to render high-res screenshot. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing that the high-res screenshot does, but in a different setup. Also, I'm thinking, Scott, that you're going when I'm thinking you're going. You're going to show off motion trails by chance?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And I'll shut up and I'll let you do that. Or do you need me to fill some room until you get that
No,
going?
it's good. Actually, I'm just gonna jump right in. That's fine.
All right, let's go. Yes,
I'm
motion
failing
trails
at
are awesome.
tangenting right now. Whatever. But yes, the motion trail update is awesome. So we're in selection mode now. So you're not actually going to see this tool until you get into animation mode, and it's actually kind of beneficial that I've got a jacked up little motion here and jacked up curves. So in animation mode, and I'm sorry if you can hear my dog coughing in the background. He is 16 years old and he just makes the worst sounds. So the motion trails. So there's this click to enable motion paths here. I've been already messing with it. Yours may not look exactly like this. Don't fret. That's okay. Let's look at the options, right? So if you look at the little gizmo on the right of the button there, you've got the option for full trail, or you can set the frames so you don't actually see the full trail. We have the trail style. I like the heat map. I'm into it, you know, but there's a lot of different options. One other thing, and this is when we're updating UIs and stuff, I'm just going to do a quick little gripe. The thing that I wish they would have done that I haven't seen yet is terrible menus. Let me tear off this menu and let it float so I don't have to keep going back into the menu. Because, I mean, look at this. Some of these things are so long. I just want to just tear this menu off and like drag it around. Anyways, I'll stop. I digress. But yeah, a lot of options here for like how the trails look. So you can change the colors and all that stuff. So animators, we're all very picky people. Like we like things very particular ways, and we like to be able to change things, even though no one else besides us will ever see them. Like motion trails don't get rendered. But we're very particular about how things look. So you've got those options in here now. You can change the the look and the thickness of all of your trails, and it's very cool. So I'll turn those up, and yeah, you can see they get really big, but you can actually edit it directly in editor now, and it will change your values. It will change your keyframes, and that's really cool. I did have this. It's a little buggy, like it didn't work right away the first time I did it, but I just jiggled the handle a little bit and I got it to work. So if you try this right out of the box and it doesn't work right away, just give it another shot. But yeah, this is great. Like we don't have handles to change curves, but that's okay. We can go in here and we still have all the great tools that we had inside of Graph Editor to kind of get those working. But that is, I think, a step in the right direction for enabling animators to work quickly. And we've got so many great tools and updates like that in this release for animation. How am I doing on time? We good? Okay.
About half hour over, but doing great. Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, just kidding. I did
all
not
right.
want to stop you.
No, that's great. I'm going to speed run these
great.
last few bits. I'm going to speed. So this is like real quick. Something again. A lot of these updates are near and dear to my heart. I work with Viagra. Jesus Christ, Niagara a lot. I'm just going to create a quick little emitter here, and we'll just do like an omniburst create. This is a quality of life update. There's probably a lot more updates that I'm totally missing inside of Niagara, but if you were to add now a light renderer, we have a debug. So you can see these now, like the lights, because it might have been tough in the past to actually visualize. Come here, get into the editor. Oh, here's the thing. I'm in animation mode, and there's an option in sequencer that I think I've enabled where you can you can't edit anything or select anything. You can't edit the actual thing. Let me get into back to select mode and just close sequencer, which is nice. So you don't want to accidentally screw up your your scene and select different things when you're trying to animate. So let me try that again. No, can't add to scene. Why not? Well, whatever. We'll just look at the visualizer inside of here. It looks the same, just cooler inside of the engine. There's another one that also has a it's decals. So you can add decals to your Niagara systems, and we have, because you won't always be able to see a decal, so having the visualizer there is really cool. There's a lot of other stuff to like NDC and just performance in general that happened inside of Niagara, which is really good to see. There is a new, I'm going to do lighting last, but we've got if you're doing optimization, so like John, you and your gaming stuff, there's a new visualizer for when you're optimizing, you're trying to figure out what's happening inside of your scene. Because we used to use, or we still use actually, a lot of like CVARs. So like you can, go like use the stat like RHI to see what's happening on your GPU, right? Well, now if you go to, it's going to be tools, the render resource viewer. This is going to give you a much better view breakout of what is happening inside of your scene. So this is like basically,
Oh my God.
I know, right?
That
So
makes me happy already.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've been using the resource render viewer for several versions now, but it's never been as like graphically
doesn't look like
visual like
this.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
and
This is
not
awesome.
as smooth as that either. Oh, that is a huge update to the
Yeah. So
resource
this is
viewer.
You should have shown that first.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I forgot the demo was for John. No. No, this is awesome. This is great to be able to kind of like dive down in and be like, all right, what is happening in my scene? Why can't I move? And right now it says nanites, 2 gigs, and so like if that's the first place I'm going to go to kind of start optimizing things, turning stuff off and figuring out what is happening inside of my scene. So GPU memory visualized right here up front. It's awesome.
This would have been so good on a previous project where trying to explain to another team that no, our stuff is not doing it. You guys are idiots. But like that right there would have been like, okay, see our section, it's this small.
We're green.
Yours is this.
Yes, absolutely. One last thing that I wanted to look at. I'm going to open this office scene really quick. Maps demo. Boo, 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 boo. And I didn't do Metahuman, so Franco, go ahead and fire up a scene if you want to demo Metahuman stuff, because I know you've been doing much more deeper dives on that than I have. But really quick, I do want to take a look at one of the new lighting features in here, and this is actually an older scene. I think it came from like an old pack, but that's okay because that actually it helps show how much better it's gotten. So I'm gonna bring in 2 glass balls here. I think I have 2 glass shaders in this scene, so I'm just gonna assign those really quick. So I have a glass 01 here, and I've got a different type of glass 02 here. And if we go to the post-process volume now, we do have, and this had previously been CVARs, and that's kind of how a lot of this stuff goes, where the developers will be adding things. They'll first start out adding them as CVARs and see how useful they are as they're developing the tools, developing the code and stuff. It'll slowly make its way into the feature pack, the attribute that it's going to be, and not be a CVAR anymore. So it's good to see these actually make that leap. So if we have our reflections set up, we have, if we're doing hard, like hit lighting for hardware ray tracing stuff, that of course has to be set up in the project. So you need to make sure you go to your project settings and make sure hardware ray tracing is set up and all that stuff. There's tutorials on that. We can send you links to all of that stuff in the chat. But we now have translucency. So we can change our translucency method. So we can change this to the default has been raster. And you can now use ray trace translucency, and you can see the change happen immediately, not just in this glass, but also the windows back here. And so that's awesome. It's really cool to see, like, let me turn off the gizmos. Really cool to see the addition of ray trace translucency and the quality gains that you're going to be able to get from that. So some of this stuff might get a little weird when you turn on like refraction and stuff. So you need to make sure your shader is set up, more physically based than before. We can't take those cheats anymore. But if you're actually using a physically based ray trace refraction shader and the model's appropriate, you can get really nice ray trace refraction now. And you can take, there's a few options here to go with that, and you can just mess around with this to see what those sort of things do. But yeah, it's really nice to see that addition into the lighting, and just looking through multiple different transparent objects and being able to see the quality upgrade that you get with that is really nice.